Welcome back, YouTubers, to our WrestleMania 20 review as part of our WrestleMania review series, WrestleMania 20, where it begins again. Not for us, though. We're going to continue this series, aren't we, MJ? We're the British Fist, of course. Here for this WrestleMania 20 review. I'm Mr. Parkin. This guy sitting next to me. It's my good partner, NJ.
What's up?
Guys, keep subscribing up above, keep liking the videos, and get your thoughts on WrestleMania 20 down in that comment section below.
And make sure you contact us in the link in the description below.
Yes, indeed. We had this one from Madison Square Gardens, NJ, the home of wrestling. They usually have every 10 WrestleManias here. It's nice to have a WrestleMania at the Garden, isn't it?
It is indeed. It's a very good place to have a WrestleMania.
Yes, and we had Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler on commentary on Raw, and Cole and Taz. Bloody hell, on SmackDown. That's a botch to start this off. They kind of botched the start of this, but they kind of botched the start of this WrestleMania, didn't they, NJ? John Cena versus Big Show for the US Championship. What do you think of this?
Okay, this is back when Cena was the rapper and all that, and this was his...
entertaining.
Yeah.
The battle rap was pretty good, though. I mean, the fans were getting behind Cena at the point. You had him be a sole survivor of that Survivor Series match between Team Angle and Brock Lesnar and Team Lesnar. You know, and it's with the US Championship on the line. It's kind of John Cena overcoming the big man, like, you know, kind of thing.
Well, look at this. It's Cena's first WrestleMania where he's going on with this US Championship, and it was okay because it's against a big guy, so it is a challenge at WrestleMania. And I look at it and thinking, okay, this is still Big Show, the big guy. She should dominate in that. But again, it was mainly about, you know, Cena getting his push.
Yeah, I mean, because later on, Cena would win the big title of WrestleMania 21, and this was part of his logical build. You know, giving him this US Championship, and then they realised they had something in him, and they made him a main eventer in 2000 and 2005, the next WrestleMania, which we will be reviewing next. But anyway, so I guess the segment opened up. It was a decent opener in the sense that you gave John Cena that kind of defining victory on his way to WrestleMania 21. It was an okay match, which Big Show pretty much dominated.
Good.
Do you want to move on to the next match?
Yep.
Before we move on to the next match, I just want to say this. WrestleMania 20 had a lot of epic moments in it, and one of them we'll go on to in a minute. But, you know, after this, we had quite a good little promo from Orton, who was with his Evolution guys, at the stairs where he pushed Mick Foley. And basically, he had this whole promo, in my opinion, was pretty good because it focused on his and Foley's feud and the Foley bringing the Rock back, and all that would culminate a backlash in what would essentially make Orton a star. This was, to me, a very good promo to set up that match later on with Rock and Sock Connection versus Evolution.
This match, or this segment, it was really a good thing to get Evolution talking. Yes, Ric Flair just stood there allowing Randy Orton to have the spotlight.
He was the centerpiece there, wasn't he?
So it was interesting, and it was something good that hyped up their match later. Yeah,
and it's funny how Orton got a month title reign at SummerSlam 2004, but WWE kind of knew where they went wrong with this because they had Orton, who was the head of that Evolution faction when Triple H wasn't there. But really, the star of that faction was Batista. And we knew it at WrestleMania 21 that WWE probably thought to themselves, we need to give this guy a title. Why we can give Orton Undertaker? So there we go. But it was a good promo segment. I did enjoy it, like the way it hyped up that match and then the Foley-Orton feud afterwards, which was essentially make Orton a star, pretty much.
Yeah, I'd give it a thumbs up because it got Orton talking, he got hyped more for that feud and the match.
We seem to get a lot of these matches at WrestleMania, don't we, NJ? Those four-way tag matches. La Resistance versus Garrison Kane and Mark Jindrak versus the Dudley Boys versus Booker T and RVD, who went in the champs and came out the champs. I think this WrestleMania kind of summed up like a lot of things, didn't it? There was 11 matches on this card. It seemed like what they were doing was trying to get as many people on the card as they could because they had so much talent that they just didn't know what to fucking do with it.
True, and they thought, again, they wanted the big guys to appear as well as these other little guys, like this tag team, Lance vs. Lance, like Kane and Jim Rack. They had some tag teams that I don't think much people cared about, but overall it was another match on the card, and it was for a championship, so it was good. Yeah,
I mean, it was 8 minutes. Like I said, Booker T and RVD would go in the champs, they'd go out the champs, another WrestleMania loss for Dudley Boys, but you know, it just seemed like it was there to put the guys on a WrestleMania card. That was pretty much it, wasn't it, really? Felt a bit like filler to me.
It was, yes. That's all.
Do you want to go on to the next match? After TLC, though, the tag matches just were so underwhelming, but that's because they peaked at WrestleMania 17 with that TLC, really.
Yeah, that was it.
And they did this a lot. But anyway, we'll move on to the next match. This was a good match based on a bad storyline. Christian versus Chris Jericho. Two guys we know can work in the ring very well together. And this match, this whole feud was done because they wanted to see, they were best friends at the time, they wanted to see who could score with Trish Stratus and Lita first. Then you had Jericho falling for Trish Stratus. You know, all that kind of stuff. So to me, it was a stupid storyline, but a good match. How do you rate this? You know,
well, I look at this and think of WrestleMania, big pay-per-view, and the story behind this was just stupid. And I'm just thinking this doesn't, the storyline doesn't really add up to a WrestleMania match, not really. But for some reason, Bischoff thought this was a good idea, so we got it.
Bischoff was all about ratings, brother. But anyway, the match itself was pretty decent, though. You had at the end of the match, you had Trish turning heel on Jericho and siding with Christian, which was something that we didn't really expect. And this feud culminated at Unforgiven 2004 in a ladder match after Christian got that injury. We've got that DVD. That was a great match.
It was, and the ending, it was a surprise, but at the same time, it was something that obviously, it was all, we thought it was going to be Trish helping Jericho, but it actually turned the other way around. So it's a good finish, unexpected finish, this match.
So good match, bad storyline.
Pretty much indeed.
Next, though, was a good match. Evolution consisting of Ric Flair, Batista, and Randy Orton, fronting this Evolution faction in this match.
Oh, theme song.
Versus The Rock and Mick Foley, Rock and Sock Connection, reuniting for one night only. This match belonged on WrestleMania, didn't it?
Yes, with this match, with The Rock being involved, and it was going to be basically Rock and Mick Foley putting over Evolution, this match was right for WrestleMania because it did the right thing.
You had that great promo before the match from Rock saying, you know, even Rosie and Jamal know, even the head of Hall of Famers know. And it was like, that was some good stuff. Reuniting Rock and Sock Connection belonged at WrestleMania, didn't it? Especially now that Rock was kind of on his way out of WrestleMania. This would be his last match, and you know, this, you know, it wasn't the best work match ever, but God, the crowd loved this one, didn't they?
Well, obviously getting to see their favourite, The Rock, wrestle again, and they were quite behind Mick Foley throughout the match. That was good. So I think it was really iconic to see The Rock in that. So the involvement of them, and it made the match more interesting to watch, and it's all about, obviously, them eventually putting Evolution over. Yeah,
and then eventually Mick Foley would put Orton over at Backlash 2004 in that hardcore match, which, like I said, made him into a star, and they gave him the title at SummerSlam 2004. So this match, to me, it went on 17 minutes, it got a good amount of time. For sheer crowd reaction, and, you know, for seeing like guys like Flair and Rock imitating each other, a singles match you never really get to see. But Evolution versus Rock and Sock Connection, I enjoyed this match. I thought it was good, because you had, look at the people you had in it.
That's very true. Even though Rock Top lost, you still got The Rock clapping hands, the audience chanting Mick Foley, so it was a good run finish for one of the match.
Yeah, and Orton wins with that RKO out of nowhere, started in 2004, still going on today. And you get that whole thing after the match with Rock and Foley getting this nice ovation. It looked like Foley was getting a bigger ovation than Rock, even though it was Rock's last WrestleMania match, and he was going into movies.
Bit of a shame, but again, with Mick Foley still sticking around and them chanting it to add up to their Orton and Mick Foley storyline, it makes sense.
Sable and Tori Wilson versus Miss Jackie and Stacey Keebler in a Playboy evening gown match. To be honest with you, just go and look at their Playboys and you don't even need to watch this match because we didn't give a shit about it. Shall we move on?
Oh, yes.
Because we move on next to the Cruiserweight Championship Open, which had like 11 people in it. Basically a gauntlet match. And like I said earlier, it seemed like they were trying to just get as many people as they could. You know, you had 10 or 11 guys there in a gauntlet match. It went about 10.5 minutes, but God, it was just like 10 guys. Why not just make this like a four-way? You know, you had Oh My Dragon, Billy Kidman, Rey Mysterio, Chavo Guerrero, Tajiri. Why not just pick the best four here and just make a four-way? It'd probably be better.
Well, the way this match was going, I'm thinking if it had less wrestlers in, it would probably got a better flow of the match.
You had 10 matches essentially in 10.5 minutes, which doesn't really give you enough time to really showcase.
No, but if it was like just the four, I think they could have kept it 10.5 minutes, but just with four wrestlers, just showed their skills, then probably built up storylines after that. It would have been a lot better than having all these other wrestlers that I don't really think people much care about or wanted to see in a match like this.
This was the problem with the Cruiserweight title in WWE. Vince McMahon was never really a good follower of the Cruiserweight Championship as opposed to like TNA and WCW, who kind of tried to showcase it, but he wasn't really a fan of it and never really made anything of it. You know, Chavo Guerrero was the last in and beat Rey Mysterio to retain the title as a heel. So there was some good action in this. It's just that it just seemed like that was it, all we're going to see.
Again, I think they had the right people in the final because them two, well, Rey Mysterio, see what happened later on. He grows up to be a big star in WWE. Chavo Guerrero, well, he was the Cruiserweight champ, so him being in the final was obviously going to happen. So I think they're the right two in the end. Anyway.
And Rey would win the World Heavyweight Championship 2 years later at WrestleMania 22. But we'll go on to that one and that review. Oh, God. Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg with special guest referee Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is one of those matches that was like, guy who was on an undefeated streak, Goldberg in WCW versus Brock Lesnar. So two massive like names and guys there. And this feud really started at the Rumble, and you know it was something a lot of people wanted to see. It got a lot of build behind it with Goldberg costing Lesnar the title and No Way Out. And this was really going to be one of those matches like that would be like a highlight of WrestleMania. Two of these guys going at it. until we found out both their contracts were up and they were leaving afterwards, and the fans knew, and they booed the fuck out of this match, didn't they?
The thing is about this match is that you had, on the nights before, Brock Lesnar and Stone Cold was having that big round, so you knew that it eventually was going to lead to this result anyway, that Austin was going to be more on Goldberg's side. And the match, well...
I didn't do anything for like 5-6 minutes, did they? It was so bad. It was just rest hold, do something, rest hold.
Well, with Goldberg and Brock Lesnar not doing anything, well, with the fans chanting this
bad
stuff about them, I wouldn't want to please them. I wouldn't want to do good things to make them happy because they were getting all this like you sold out.
They deserved it because they were leaving after WrestleMania. That's why.
Yeah, but obviously you wouldn't want to wrestle pleased if they're giving you that. But at the same time, the match
still got to fulfill your job though.
At the same time, the match, I really don't think that it was going to be a big WrestleMania match. But if their contracts weren't going to be given up at the end, maybe it could have been a bit more, people would have been behind it more. It's just disappointing. It
was a major disappointment in the sense that they got all this build-up and then what they did was just there. And it was kind of like, well, these two guys are on their way out, so why do we want to please these fans? You had Brock Lesnar giving the big fuck you to the crowd afterwards. Goldberg wins the match, the babyface wins, and Austin basically stunners them both afterwards, and he was the only one that was getting cheered because they were both getting booed, and they fucking deserved it because they were shit.
I think the finish at the end with the two Stone Cold Stunners, again, the crowd really liked that. As much as they were pleased that Goldberg won, it sounded like, I think they were more pleased that Austin did the right thing and taking both down.
Because Austin was a fan favourite, and those two were both on their way out, so you can't blame them for cheering them anyway. But a big disappointment, really. You know, this was one of those matches you expected to be like a big WrestleMania highlight, but it just turned out to be a big pile of dog turd. Pretty much. Then after this disappointment, we had the World's Greatest Tag Team versus APA versus the Basham Brothers versus the Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, who were the champions for the WWE Tag Team Championships when they had them on both Raw and SmackDown. And again, this just seemed... It was another four-way match just to get people on the card, really, wasn't it? It only went about 6 minutes. Just seemed like another filler tag match.
Well, this match I was kind of more interested because the tag teams in it were a bit more, you know, what we want, who we liked and that. So I was more interested in this. It's just the time for this important tag match. It wasn't the best of matches, but still the time was kind of short for this.
And that's a consequence of having, 11 matches on the card, having that stupid Divas match. But essentially, Rikishi gets the win, and afterwards we get a dance. That was quite entertaining. It always was, but this match, it just seemed like filler and didn't get enough time.
No.
Then after that, Molly Holly versus Victoria, hair versus hair for the WWE Women's Championship. Why did they even have that hair versus hair stipulation? Just ruined what could have been a pretty decent match, in my opinion. It's
a stupid gimmicky match. It doesn't really evolve around wrestling. But again, Victoria picks up the win, so that was the main thing. And because Victoria's going to go on and obviously still be a good diva for
5 minutes. It just really wasn't anything special because they probably didn't have enough time to fit it in. So, I don't know. But should we move on to the next match? Because it was a good match. Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero for the WWE Championship. Like I said earlier, Guerrero won the belt from Lesnar at No Way Out. Great moment there. Could have maybe made him win it at WrestleMania, but I didn't mind that because they made him retain here. They played the whole storyline of Eddie Guerrero's drug history with Kurt Angle saying, "I should be representing SmackDown," you know, with his drug history and everything. But these two always had great chemistry in the ring, and you knew you were going to get a pretty decent match out of these two on WrestleMania.
That's true. With Kurt Angle's mind set on getting the gold, and Eddie Guerrero wanted to retain it, it was going to be a good match between the two. And with Eddie Guerrero, the way you've seen him in the past and the build up to this moment, you know he's going to put on an entertaining match. And Angle, again, he can work with anyone. So him going into this match at WrestleMania against Eddie Guerrero, it was going to be a good match anyway.
God, I've said this on the SummerSlam review series, but goddamn, I miss Eddie Guerrero. Like moments like these are the reasons why WrestleMania was so damn special, because you had a great what was a great technical match that you kind of want on a WrestleMania card because you want that good technical match going. You'd expect these two to put on a good match, and you had that whole ending with Eddie Guerrero because he had his live sheet and steel gimmick at the time when he loosens his boot, Angle takes it off on the ankle lock and he rolls up Angle. That suited his character so well, that finished it. It got 21.5 minutes as well. These guys put on a great technical match.
Well, with the match going as great as it did, again, it built up to an ending that shows how Eddie Guerrero's mind worked. And I've heard people say that, that was just a quick way out. It should have been finished with the fourth match.
His character, though.
Yeah, it could have finished with the fourth match, people were saying. But I think the way Eddie Guerrero finished it, again, it carried on his whole cheat line steel gimmick as time went on. So I think it finished in a perfect way.
Eddie Guerrero retaining his title at WrestleMania. A good moment for a guy like Eddie Guerrero, defining victory. So this is a good match. One of two good main event matches we had tonight. you want to go on to the next one?
The next one, yes.
Kane versus The Undertaker. Remember we saw this match at WrestleMania 14, NJ, and what a great match that was because of the build and the way they had the Kane character going. Here, Kane was a real shade of himself at 14, wasn't he, with the way he was booked against Taker in this match.
Well, with this match, it did have a good video package, really hyping the match up, hyping up how Kane was and how he took out Taker, and it really added up to this. And when the match came along, again, it was too short for the time was too short for a return match, as well as having a brother versus brother. I was kind of disappointed that it just didn't go as long as it should have done to make this match more interesting and for Taker's return. Again,
another consequence, in my opinion, of trying to fit too much on a WrestleMania card when you've got so much talent just after WCW goes out of business a couple of years later, and you've got all this talent, and we'll just go on to the match itself, though. Like you said, this is the return of the dead man gimmick. The crowd did pop hard for it. This was just a way of getting Undertaker a return. The return was pretty good, but the fact that the match went only about 7 minutes 45. And I look at that WrestleMania 14 match and I'm just like, God, this is such a shade of their WrestleMania 14 match, which was so damn good.
And that's the problem, because with Kane being as high as he was and as big as a monster he was, the WWE have seemed to have lost track with him and not kept his gimmick as high as they could have done. When it comes to this match, yes, he still had the dark promos and that, but he weren't the same, so it weren't going to ever be as good as that match.
Yeah, and this was the Undertaker we would essentially get, until now, pretty much, the Dead Man Undertaker. It just was it was just a glorified way of bringing Taker back while having him kind of squash Kane, really, wasn't it?
Well, with the bike gimmick gone and we had the Dead Man back, it was a very good moment for the fans to see, because this is what we want to see from Taker.
But a disappointing match.
The match could have been better.
Yeah, just a shade of the 14 match, basically. Now we get on to this main event. God, this main event was good. Shawn Michaels versus Chris Benoit versus Triple H. You had Benoit win the Royal Rumble. Triple H and Michaels had that draw at the Royal Rumble, and they were continuing their feud, which I know you really enjoyed. You stuck Benoit in there. You got your Royal Rumble winner in the main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. You had everything here to make a great triple threat. And what a great triple threat main event this was, MJ.
It was meant to be like just Triple H and Benoit, but Shawn Michaels signed a contract, got himself into the match.
Legal.
It was a kind of a tricky way to get in, but they allowed it. The match itself, I think it didn't show anyone's weakness. No. They all had a good big fight between each other. You had a bit of Triple H and Shawn Michaels there feud. You had a bit of Chris Benoit and both of them. I really enjoyed this match.
Would you say triple threat matches usually, aren't as good? I mean, this is probably the best triple threat match I've ever seen in a wrestling ring. Just period. Just the story these guys told. They got 25 minutes to go out there and have a great match. The fans, usually who would cheer for Shawn Michaels, they wanted Benoit so much. They booed Michaels when he was going for the super kicks, didn't they?
There was times when, obviously, you heard them boo Shawn Michaels, but there was times when they cheered him, so it was a bit back and forward, but the main concentration was on Benoit as he went through Triple H and Shawn Michaels throughout the match.
And Chris Benoit, this is a WrestleMania moment in itself. Chris Benoit wins with the crossface on Triple H and ends what would be a great WrestleMania main event. The best, like I said, one of the best triple threat matches I've ever seen in my life. But you got Triple H in there, Shawn Michaels in there, and Benoit in there. That's what you got. It was a great main event. It puts over Benoit. Everyone wanted Benoit to win. You could tell from the crowd reaction after he won the Royal Rumble. He was ready for that main event status, and it was a great main event. A fantastic way to end WrestleMania 20.
We had two great wrestlers putting over Chris Benoit throughout the whole match, and even Triple H at the end, who held his bite throughout the crossface and eventually tapping in. So they both did a great job putting Benoit over for his title.
And then, this is what WrestleMania moments are made of, guys. You had Eddie Guerrero coming out and embracing with Chris Benoit, one of his real-life best friend. And if it wasn't for Eddie Guerrero's death, and if it wasn't for Benoit's, the way what he did, we won't mention it here. This, taking all that out of context, this was one of those WrestleMania moments where you just had to shed a tear because it was that emotional. It was a WrestleMania moment everyone will keep remembering.
Well, you had early in the night, Eddie Guerrero bringing up Benoit to this match and really bringing the frustration and the anger and all the commitment to this match. Then at the end, Eddie Guerrero coming out, it was just a beautiful WrestleMania moment, and a moment that is always going to be remembered for this WrestleMania.
But is always going to be marred by that Chris Benoit thing. That's the only problem about this. I can very easily take all that out, but there's a lot of people out there that just look at this moment and can't stomach it anymore because of that Benoit thing. That is such a shame for a guy like Benoit that his career, that he had a great moment like this, and it was ruined by that whole thing that he did in 2006 or 2007, whatever it was.
As we've seen now, the WWE just don't think about Chris Benoit anymore, just because what he's done. But this moment is still going to be stuck there now. Nothing's going to change. It's there now.
A great WrestleMania moment, along with the Rock and Sock Connection thing. There was a lot of WrestleMania moments in this card, but there was a lot of bad WrestleMania moments in there that we don't want to remember, and a lot of filler in there. And this really translates to our overall thoughts. 11 matches, in my opinion, was too much. You had a fair amount of filler in there, in my opinion. You had a good Jericho-Christian match ruined by a bad storyline. Great, the whole Evolution versus Rock and Sock Connection was a WrestleMania moment in itself. You had Benoit versus Benoit. That triple threat match was fantastic. That moment at the end, Eddie Guerrero retaining against Angle. There was a lot of good moments in this WrestleMania. It's just a shame that it's marred by the whole Lesnar Goldberg thing, the Kane Undertaker thing. I don't think quite went over as well as really should have compared to 14. And you had a lot of filler stuff in there, which just seemed to try and get people, as many people on the card as possible. It's really a chance of how do you outweigh the really good stuff from the kind of bad stuff.
Well, I look at this, and they concentrate on the ending title matches brilliantly. It's just the first title matches and Taker's return that I think could have done with more time. Take out some of the pointless things during the show. And I think the only problem with me was the time limit and the amount of matches. But the main events, the two big title matches, they really made this show what it was.
The matches you wanted to deliver, delivered. The Rock and Sock Connection thing, the Shawn Michaels Benoit Triple H match, the Kurt Angle Eddie Guerrero match didn't, but some of them didn't, like the Brock Lesnar Goldberg match and the Undertaker Kane match, in my opinion. So it's kind of how you balance this. How do you grade this show? There was a lot of good moments in here, but there was a lot of bad in there too. So how do you rate it?
Mine's going to be a C+, just because I felt that it was a WrestleMania that had great moments in, great matches, but it just lacked with the time and the amount of matches.
It lacked a complete card like WrestleMania 17 had, like WrestleMania 14 had, like WrestleMania 19 had, for example. You had a lot of good moments in there, but it lacked backup and in the undercard and stuff. So for me, this WrestleMania, just due to the matches that did deliver, the fact they delivered apart from one or two, it gets like a C+, B- if I'm being very generous here. It was still a good WrestleMania based on the matches, especially the end, the two championship matches, the WWE and the World Heavyweight, were great matches, and they really do bring the grade up for me, because you had some genuine WrestleMania moments in there which we won't ever forget.
No, true.
So you're giving it a C+?
Yes.
I'm really torn between C+ and B-. Sorry guys, I can't really decide on this one. But that's our thoughts on WrestleMania 20. Have you got anything else to say?
All I'm going to say is that this WrestleMania is going to be one that we're going to remember. It's going to be one that we've enjoyed watching in some aspects. Some of it really let us down, but just share your thoughts, people.
Yeah, make sure you get your thoughts on this down in the comment section below on the highs and indeed the lows of this WrestleMania. I have been Mr. Parkin. This guy has been NJ.
What's up?
And you do what you do.
And all I'm going to say, people, is next one, it's going to be WrestleMania 21. So make sure you tune into that. We'll be reading that soon. Leave your thoughts about this WrestleMania in the comment section below. And all I can say, people, is thank you very much for watching from Mr. Parkin and me, NJ. Till next time, goodbye.